All right, seems like the recording is on. So thank you everyone for joining this How to Master Dashboard Actions webinar today. I'm Jade Levan and I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes. And together we'll see how to implement interactions in the dashboard and why you should use interactions or not use it sometimes. So I did a sound check earlier and I think most people managed to connect. So I won't be dealing with audio troubles. WebEx can be tricky, but I'm sure if you fickle with the audio settings, you should be able to find your way in. You also probably noticed that when you joined this webinar, you were put on mute. This is because it can create background noises. And so if you want to interact with me, I ask you to use the chat box, not the Q&A box, because the Q&A is only to me and other people cannot see. So please use the chat box and make sure you send to all participants so people can see your questions, and you might even get some interactions in the group answering questions while I'm presenting, because I will try to get as many questions as I can, but being alone on this webinar today, it might be a bit tough for me to answer everyone. So in today's webinar, we're going to start with best practices for dashboard actions. So I'll tell you a bit how I personally approach dashboard actions and what are my tips to make it easier, less time consuming. And then we will focus on each type of dashboard actions. So first the filtering action, then the highlight action, and then the URL action. And you'll see that filter actions will take most of our time because that's not necessarily the most complex one, but the one with the most options. And then once you understand filter actions, highlight actions and URL actions are pretty straightforward. So we'll be working today on a dashboard that's already made. So we'll just play with various displays of the same dashboards. And we will see interactions this way. And I won't be discussing how there are 3 graphs in this dashboard, you will see. I won't be discussing how they were built because we wouldn't have time to cover the action part if I did. And it will be probably a lot of content, so hang on. And you'll get the video later on to review if it was too fast or if there's something that you missed. Of course, I will also share the workbooks with you. They are published on Tableau Public, and I will give you a link at the end. All right, so starting with the best practices, I'd like to show you this picture, which is linked to a dashboard that I did a year or so ago. It's inspired by the Big Mac index from The Economist. So this is the version from The Economist. And I'll share the link with you in the chat box. So it may have changed because the one I duplicated in Tableau was the one from 2016. So there were a bit of changes since, but it's still mostly the same. So you see you have a map, you have this scatter plot, then you have this bar chart with diverging bars. And when you hover over a country, let's say China, you see that the scatter plot is replaced by a line chart, giving you the Big Mac index for China over time. And there are lots of, not only does the line chart update, but you also see this little description of the China Big Mac index evolution. And you see that the bar is highlighted on the bar chart on the right side. So that was quite a lot of interaction. And I managed to duplicate it in this dashboard. So the interactivity changed a little bit. So you'll see it's not on hover. I'm personally not a big fan of a hover action because it can be quite dizzying for the reader. But here, when you click on a country, then you see this line chart appearing. And then if you click on a specific month for the country that you've chosen, then you see the details for that country for that month. And you see you also have some highlighting activity that happens here. So I think that was the most dashboard actions intensive dashboard that I've ever created. And the goal is not that you manage to recreate this at the end of today, but that you have all the tools to be able to implement this kind of interactivity in your future dashboards. And so my first best practice for that is that you always try to map, or to at least to think a bit ahead when you create something, on what kind of actions you would like to create, because it will help you understand how dashboard actions work and what are the fields that you need to have in the various charts that are linked. For instance, if I want my map to be linked with my bar chart, I need my bar chart to be a bit about countries. So countries must be somewhere in the view in my bar chart or in the level of detail, but it has to be here for my filters to work. And so here I was, when I created this dashboard, I just started by studying the Big Mac index from The Economist, and then I listed what were the dashboard actions that I wanted, and then I mapped them with those, like, I don't know how to call this. I created a legend that only makes sense for myself, probably, and then I tried to make a diagram of the actions. So I think this is a good practice for you, especially if you're trying to build something complex. Then, if we go to this dashboard actions menu for the Big Mac index, you will see that my second best practice for you, and I try to apply it as much as I can, is to give intelligible names to your actions and to your sheets. So, except for this one, the highlight one, that doesn't mention what is being highlighted from what, you see that I always try to explain clearly which action is doing what, because if you need to do some debugging, it will help you a lot to know if one action is not working. You will be able to identify it immediately and to investigate. And if I double click on one action, you will see that my sheets are also named quite clearly, because I want to be able to quickly debug as well. So all of this makes it much faster for you to implement your actions. All right. And the last trick, it's more common sense, but nevertheless, I'll call it a best practice. It's to make sure that the fields you are filtering on are in both source and target sheets. So that's what I was telling you. If I want my map to filter something or to highlight something, I need both those target sheets to include the country notion at some point. So let's check for this one. If I go to my line chart, I see that country is here as an attribute. And if I go to my country spread, I see that country is here in the rows, so it's okay. They both contain country and they can thus be filtered by the map. All right, so those were basic principles that will help you implement your dashboard actions. Now we'll go into the details by working on this dashboard and seeing different techniques. I just have one person who said that they're not able to hear me, but as I see many of you are still in and no one is complaining, I will assume that this person is having a problem, so I'll just tell that person to try again until it works. Up. Here we go. All right. So just to remind you what we're going to cover now, we'll start with filter actions, and we'll see what you can do apart from using a filter, clicking the little icon that most people can do. And then we'll go into other types of actions. So this is the dashboard we're going to use today. It's about the height of human beings. So you get the heights of human beings from all over the world, split by gender, so male, female, and this starting in 1896 and until 1996. The height that is considered is the average height of people aged 18, so that it's standardized. And the three charts that I will use in all the dashboards that we're going to see today are this map, which actually has a filter on gender. So it's here, you cannot see it, but it's here. And so if I want to see male or female, I can. Then I have this line chart, and here as well I can choose by gender. And also I can highlight a specific country, filter on a specific country. Okay, that's actually a filter with a parameter that creates a sort of highlight, but it's not technically a highlight. And I have this, I called it Gantt. It's not a Gantt, it's actually a line chart, but it's showing you from between 1896 and 1996 how big has been the height evolution. So you see that people in Latvia, for instance, in 1896, the average woman was 1 meter 55 high. And in 1996, a century later, the average woman was 169 centimeters high, which is quite a big evolution. And these three charts we're going to find in most of my, all of my dashboards, and that's what we're going to use to understand the different concepts. I didn't want to forget to mention that this great dashboard was originally created by Andy Kribel, who tweets at BizWizBI. So this guy is he's a Zen master. He's a genius of Tableau. He's been using it for many, many years, and he has a great blog with lots of tutorials. So if you don't know him yet, I strongly advise to follow him. And now that this is said, we will start with a very basic filtering notion, which is the idea that sometimes your filter, when you bring your chart to your dashboard, your filter will apply only to one chart. So let's check for sex, women, and men. We see that at the moment, it only makes the line chart change. And the reason why is because when I brought the different charts onto the dashboard, I probably had duplicates of this filter, because you remember this one also has a filter. And I only kept one, and the one that I kept was the one associated with the line chart. So at the moment, it's only filtering my line chart. Of course, you can decide that this gender, sex filter should apply to more than the line chart. It should actually apply to all of the charts here. So I'll exit the full screen mode. And what I will do is I select my filter sex. I click more options. And here I have, as a second option, apply to worksheets. And this is where I can decide to apply to all using this data source. So this would work here. But I could also decide to apply to selected worksheets. So let's say I don't want it to apply to my Gantt for some reason. I could also do it. So now if I go back to full screen mode, you shall see focus on the map, because that's the most difficult to see, but you should see that it's changing with the filter. And now if I want my Gantt chart to also be filtered, I'll either do this, or I could just go all using this data source, and the result would be the same. So now look at the Gantt chart, and you see that it's changing. So that was the first one to get you warmed up. It's pretty easy, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone got this one. Next one is about using chart as a filter. So again, that's the easy one, using the funnel icon. But I just wanted to make sure, because this training has a bit of tips for every level. So don't worry if you're an advanced user. We will get to cover more advanced tips very soon. So let me put this on full screen. You see that at the moment there is nothing happening. I didn't implement any interaction and interactivity yet. So what I'll do is I will just select my map, because I want my action to be from my map to my other charts. And I will click the little icon, Use as Filter. If you see on the side, I gave you another way to do that. You could go into the menu and go find Use as Filter, but of course it's much easier to just click on the little funnel icon. And now When I click on a country, you will see that it's filtering both my line chart and my Gantt chart on that specific country. So very easy, just a quick reminder. And this will help me introduce the next concept, which is when you want something more refined than use a filter, and you will understand what the problem might be soon. So here you see that this chart is already activated as a filter because the funnel icon is white. And so if I unclick, use a filter, activated when white when it's activated. And let's see in full screen mode what happens when I use this chart as a filter. All right, see what's the problem? Because when I click on the line, I'm just selecting one point in time. So I'm not selecting the whole line as a country. I'm selecting year 1960 for Australia. And then my Gantt chart reflects that and shows me just the dot for 1960 for Australia for women. So what's the problem here? It is that I'm filtering on all the different fields that are used in my line chart when I actually would like to filter only on the country. So how to modify this? We will go into the Dashboard Actions menu, which is here at the top left, Actions. And then you see Filter 1 generated. So this Filter 1 generated is the one that I created by clicking the little icon, Use as Filter. So when I double click on this one, I see the detailed menu for actions, for the filter actions. And I see at the bottom, there is the possibility to change the filtering. So at the moment, I'm using all fields, but I also have an option to use selected fields. If I click selected fields, then Tableau will let me add filters one by one. And here what I'm trying to do is to just filter on the country. So I choose country in my data, in my source data sheet, and then Tableau automatically matches it with country, the country field in my target sheet. So I'm done. I don't want to use the years. I click OK. And now, if I go back to full screen mode, you see that I'm indeed filtering only on the country from the line chart to the Gantt chart. And so my Gantt still looks like a full range of the centimeters that people have grown on average. Okay. Any questions so far? I don't see anything in the chat box, so let me just open the Q&A box in case some people didn't get my comment on Q&A. Okay, no. So just as a reminder, any question, comments, just drop it in the chat box. Please don't use the Q&A box, which doesn't allow other people to see your questions. Okay, so that was it for filtering using selected fields. Let's move on to the next one, which is about excluding all values. So it's a bit unclear at the moment what I mean by excluding all values, but let me show you quickly what's the problem here and how excluding all values might help. So here I have this line chart that I put on top of my map. And it looks okay, but I see that whenever I don't select anything, then I just see all those lines, and it's not really pretty. It's not really something I can read. So it would totally confuse my readers. What I can do then, and you'll see there are two positive aspects to that, is to choose in the Filter Actions menu to exclude all values when nothing is selected. What I will do is when I don't have a country selected, I won't see any line. And I will even be able to hide totally, like the chart will disappear from my view, practically. So it's really nice when you're trying to declutter a chart, a dashboard. And that's actually the same principle as the one here. Like you see that the line chart is only appearing when I click on a country. And this is achieved by excluding all values when no country is selected. So how to do this? I'm on my dashboard. I go to my dashboard actions menu here. This is my filter at the moment. So you notice that the little icon is white, which means I'm using the basic filter, the easy filter. And you see how it works. So it's from the map to my line charts. It works on select. And here is the part I want to drag your attention to. You see clear the selection will either leave the filter, show all values, or exclude all values. At the moment, I'm showing all values. So when I'm not clicking, when I'm deselecting or not having any country selected, it's showing all for my line chart. What I could choose is to leave the filter. So when let's say I click on Brazil, it shows Brazil. I deselect Brazil, it stays on Brazil. So I don't see this clutter of lines. And the last option is exclude all values. So it means if I click on Brazil, it will show Brazil. If I unclick Brazil, it will show nothing, no line at all. This is the one I want to show you today. So I click exclude all values. Okay. Okay. And now let's try Norway. I click on Norway, I see Norway. I unclick, I see nothing. So this is cool because it's not taking space. I can see Russia just below. I will actually move it a bit, otherwise. Yeah, the problem is if I have this, even if it's transparent, people won't be able to click on Russia, so that's quite upsetting. So if you're playing with floating sheets like this, and you want to use this trick of excluding all, just make sure that it's not covering any points, or you will drive your users crazy. Okay, so pretty nice, but as you will see in the annotations I put on the right side for when you will review this material on your own, the title is a bit ruining my effect because I'm trying to make it look clean and to make it kind of a surprise effect that there will be a line chart when you click on a country. Well, not really a surprise effect. I should have instructions saying click on a country. But I don't want this ugly title showing up here. So what I will do is I will right-click on my title, hide it, and now it's totally transparent. So if we go back on full screen mode, then this is what I get. Please note that if you wanted to have a title, a dynamic title that shows only when a chart is displaying, you could do that by creating a title in a separate sheet. So I'm just going to show you quickly how you could do that, because I'm not sure everyone knows how to. So the idea is that, let me get rid of those. I'll keep the filter on women. So what I did here, okay, I'll just start from scratch again. What I did here is I chose text, and then I brought my country, and then I could make it a little title text, so like height evolution in the country. So it just gives me a list of titles like this with all the countries that I have in my data set. I could actually make it a bit more title-ish with maybe this and a bit bigger, something like this. And now I can just bring it to my dashboard. So it's a title, dynamic title here. I'll bring it on top of my graph. I will hide the title. And now you see, because it's dynamic, the same action is being applied to it as the one that applies to the line chart. And so when nothing is selected, it's excluding all values, so not showing any title. And then when I click on a country, it tells me, like it shows me the title and the chart. So that's a neat little trick, but don't forget, you should have some kind of instructions for people to know how to use it, because otherwise they will just see a map with dots and they might not necessarily have the idea to click on a dot. So you should help by saying, click on a country to see how the height of selected gender evolved over time. Something like this. Maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, well, this is just formatting. Something like this. And you might even include some instructions on how to use the filter as well. But that's kind of implicit here. So yeah, cool. Next one in line is the Vision Tooltip. I'm pretty happy to present it to you because it's our new feature. It was released 2 weeks ago. And this is kind of solving the problem of excluding all values. The problem being that if you have dots everywhere on your map, you won't be able to hide this kind of chart without being on top of a dot. So the Vision Tooltip, as its name explains quite clearly, is the possibility to add a chart inside the tooltip. The tooltip is the thing that shows when you hover over a dot. So this is the tooltip saying Wikipedia URL, blah, 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 country, etc. So how to do it? You do it in the sheet that you want to use, even though I recently learned that there is a shortcut that is extremely time-saving. So just in case you don't know it, I will show it with you. I will show it to you. If I select my map, which is technically a worksheet, then I can click on the worksheet menu and go Tooltip, and that lets me access the tooltip directly. So for 2 years, I've been just going back to my sheet and clicking on this tooltip button and editing my tooltips when I could just have done it without leaving my dashboard. That's, yeah, just try to remember it because it will come in handy very soon, I'm sure. All right, so I'm just doing it the old-fashioned way so that you see the full process. I went back to my map sheet, and here I'll show you how to include Viz in the tooltip. So sorry, I may have been a bit too fast. I'm in my sheet, tooltip. I want to put my tooltip at the bottom, so I'll come here, and then I go Insert. And this is the novelty. You didn't have sheets before 10.5, the latest version, but now you have this option, Sheets, and then you can choose any of the charts that you've built in your workbook, excluding the one that you're on. Because it wouldn't make sense to have this map and then showing the same map in the tooltip when you hover over a point. So here I'll probably use the line chart, and you see that when I select the line chart sheet, lines we are becoming taller, then automatically Tableau adds this little line of code saying sheet name, the name of my sheet, max width equals 300, max height equals 300, and filter equals all fields. Those parameters are all customizable. So if you wanted to replace the sheets, you could either delete this line of code and insert a new sheet, or you could type in the name of your other sheet directly here. Then for max width, you can actually change the width. Let's say I want my line chart to show on a slightly wider space. Then I could just change that to 400 instead of 300, which is the default. I can go up to 600 in width. And for height, I can go above 600, but keep in mind that if it's really big, it will probably cover your whole chart below. And the idea is not to recreate a dashboard in the tooltip, so try to, if it's too big, it means probably that you're not designing your dashboard the way it should be. Okay, and then the filters, of course, you can also change. So let's say instead of filtering on all fields, I want to filter only on country. I could very well do that country, and that would still work. So let's see. Now my tooltip looks like this, and when I hover over a country, I see the evolution of the heights for the gender chosen over time. So if I go back to my dashboard, you will see that it's not working. And you also notice that 400 is probably a bit too big, so let's change. I'll show you again this magic tip. I've selected my map. I go worksheet, tooltip, and I can change it right here. And I could make it 300 by 200 so that it's less invasive. All right, and I could probably also change my line to fit all entire. It's already fitting entire view because I find it a bit crammed onto the left side. Oh, but that's just because of my Wikipedia title is very long. So let me just get rid of my Wikipedia title, my Wikipedia URL here. Yeah, and now it's much better. So this is why I had a very big tooltip, even though I had said that I wanted a chart that was 200 by 300, 300 by 200. Okay, so that was the Vision tooltip. I strongly recommend you to try it out. It's very cool. It's a feature that people have been waiting on for, I guess, a year plus. So we're all very happy that it's now here and so easy to use. That's pretty much it for filter actions, and I included the Vision tooltip in the filter part because it's basically a filter. You don't have the possibility to just highlight a line here in your tooltip. It will just filter on the country that you hover over. You couldn't do highlight. And it's a static image. So let's say I keep this selected. If I hover over my line chart, there is no possibility of more interactivity. Like it's not a Russian doll where I click on this and then I click on that and it opens another tooltip. No, not yet. Okay, checking for any question here. Okay, so either it's going really fast and you're busy taking notes, or it's crystal clear. Both ways, I'm happy with that. Let's move on to highlight actions. I will just get rid of my, well, yeah, I'll get rid of the tooltip because it's disturbing. So let me just get rid of that bit of code to get back to a clean tooltip. Okay, so what do we have at the moment? I'll put it on full screen. We have no action. So the highlighting action would basically help us highlight a line on the line chart below without getting rid of all the other lines. So it helps us keep context. Because the problem with the filtering action like this is that the y-axis is changing dynamically to adjust to the line that I'm looking at. So here you see it goes from 150 to 160, while here we were on a scale of 142 to 152. So it's a completely different size range, and it doesn't really let you compare easily countries among themselves. So what I want to do in that case is to use a highlighting action. So I'll go dashboard, actions, and here I will add an highlighting action. So highlight from map to line chart. The same source sheet, I say I want to highlight from the map to the target sheet line. I'd rather do it on selection because I find that hover is very confusing, as I said in the beginning. For menu actions, we will see just next what it's about. Select is just a click, and that's the most obvious way of interacting, so I'll just keep it like this. And I can filter on all the fields. It's not a problem, especially because there is only country and Wikipedia URL here. So I'll just say OK, and let's try it. Oops. And it's still a filter. Why? This is because a bit like multiplication has the priority over addition. The filtering action has priority over the highlighting action, and I didn't get rid of my filter. So let's try and getting rid of my filter. And now I get my highlighting action. So this was just to let you know that filters have priority over highlighting. So if you implement some highlight and it doesn't work, it's still filtering, it's probably that you have a filtering action that you set up before and that you need to get rid of. And now we get the highlighting thing, which allows you, so just now we were comparing, I think, Bangladesh to, I can't remember, but maybe Brazil, and you see that they're on a different scale. Like Bangladesh women started much lower, and they reach an average height of 154 in 1996. So please try to think a bit about design when you decide which kind of action to implement. I personally really like the highlighting action because it really helps you to keep the context. And of course, sometimes filtering action is also good and works best. So you really need to see if you need the context or not. Okay, that was it for highlighting actions. Now I'll show you a bit of what menu actions mean. Menu actions can actually be highlighting, filtering, or URL. It's just the way it will be triggered. So I told you sometimes you can use hover action. So when you hover over a dot, it will impact the target sheet. Then most of the time you're using a click action. So a simple click on a country will trigger the filtering or the highlighting. And the menu action is the third option, and you see it here at play. It will let you create some sort of links in the tooltip, and that's when you click on the dot, you will be able to see what are the options and trigger the action. So let me do that again in full screen mode. If I want to highlight the country, I click and it highlights the country. So it's one more click, which makes it a bit more difficult to use, like less straightforward for users, but sometimes it can be useful as well. So let me first tell you how to implement menu actions. It's pretty easy. Let's start with our highlighting action. So highlighting, we just saw it, how it works. The only difference is that instead of ticking select, I ticked menu, and that's how I got it to show in the tooltip. And to make it easy for the user to understand what the menu action is doing, I put highlight country. The other one I have here is a little trick that I wanted to show you on how to move from a dashboard to another dashboard within a workbook. So let me show you what it does, and then we'll see how it works. So let's click on the second option, go to dashboard linked, go to link dashboard actions dashboard. And you see that I reach this other dashboard. So how does it work? I'll open the actions menu and we'll deconstruct it together. What I'm doing here is I'm saying we are in the sheet 7A menu actions. So this is my source sheet. And I want that when I click on the map on a menu action, I have this link saying go to dashboard link dashboard actions, which is 7B. And then what I do is I say that my target sheet is not 7A and some of the chart in 7A. I tell it that it's actually 7B, and I want it to impact all of the charts. Or maybe just the line chart is better. Let's just test it. So instead of having my map impacting the line chart below, I want my map to impact the line chart in another sheet. I'll save. And now you see that indeed, when I go to the other sheet, it's filtered on the country that I clicked on the first map. So easy concept, but then you will see that you will be stuck in a situation that you don't really know how to exit from, which is the fact that your line chart will be locked based on the choice of country you did on the other sheet. So what you need to do then is to use a reset filters button to allow you to reset your filters. And this is the button that's here that we need to activate together. This button is very easy to create. I just went into a sheet. I can create it anew for you. I made it look like a shape. I gave it the shape of a button. And then I created a field that's called reset filter, and that just says click to reset all filters as a string. So string because it's between quotation marks. And when I bring this to shape, I get one single shape. I can say I want it to be a full shape like this, so it looks like a button. I also want my button to say reset all filters. Something like this. Yeah, that's how I created my button. Then I put my title on top of it. And you get a nice button like this. Exactly the same as this one. So what I did then is I floated the sheet containing my button here. And as for now, I didn't activate it. So let's activate it together. We'll go to Dashboard Actions. The highlighting action is, let's check it out. So usually when I click on a country on my map in this sheet, it should highlight my lines, but it doesn't. It shouldn't do anything to my reset button, but it doesn't because my line is locked based on the checks I did on the other sheet. So what I will do is I will create an action, which is a filtering action. And I will say, when I click on my reset button, I want my lines, and why not my maps, to show all values. And it could be either on all fields or on country field. Here, because my map logged the country field, I will just say I want it to work on the country field. So what it will do is when I click on my reset button, it will show all values for my lines and for my map based on the country. So let's go back on full screen mode. You see that I'm still locked on Turkey from my other sheet. And now let's try clicking on this button. And you see that I'm back to all the lines and my filter, my highlighting action works again. So it's a bit not tricky, but it requires a bit of practice. It can be useful if you want to navigate between sheets, so I really wanted to show it to you. And we won't be doing much more of this. I'll send you a link to the posted, published Viz on public that you can download and see how it works and reproduce on your own dashboards. All right, the last one I wanted to show you is URL actions. It's pretty easy. We saw it before when we were creating highlighters and filters. It will be in the dashboard actions menu, add action, URL action. And here you just need to have a URL in your source sheet, which is here my map, that is available somewhere. So here I have a Wikipedia link that I can use. If we go back to the sheet, you will see that this Wikipedia link is actually here in the detail. So it's a field here. Oops. It's this field that allows me to make a search for a specific country in Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is using a standardized URL format. And so I have it, I have it here as a detail. And now that I implement my action hyperlink, so hyperlink to Wikipedia page, what I will need to do is bring a web page that I leave empty. And now when I click on a country, because I left it as a menu action, I get this hyperlink to Wikipedia page, and it will load here. If I wanted to load immediately, I can just make it on select, and now I click on Iraq, I got the Iraq Wikipedia page. If I wanted the Wikipedia page to show up in a browser, I could just not use a web element here and just click on a country, and this would open the Wikipedia page in my browser. But I think it looks much neater if it opens here directly. So the trick is just put a blank web page, and the URL action will automatically open it. Note that you cannot have more than one URL showing up in a web page in the same dashboard, which means that if I had another URL somewhere in my viz, like let's say I have the Wikipedia and the World Bank link, I couldn't show different things in those two web pages. All right. So that was quite an intensive webinar. I'll be waiting for your questions. And meanwhile, I just wanted to share with you some worst practices. So we started with the best practices, which were map your actions ahead, give clear names to your actions and sheets, and make sure the fields you're filtering are in both the source and the target sheet. And so the opposite of this is the don'ts. So my first don't will be don't use dozens of dashboard actions just because you can. Try to think about why you should use a filter, why you should use a highlighter, what's the value added for your reader. And the second one is don't think that users will immediately know how to use your dashboard. If you've been playing with Tableau Public for a while, you know that you can click on stuff and things may happen. But other people might not be aware, and they might just think this is static, and why is it showing Andorra? And they might not have the idea to click, so always give them some instructions, like click on a country to see its Wikipedia page. Yeah, make sure you always guide your reader. Someone is asking how to jump to a dashboard in a different workbook. You could do it with a URL action, actually, if you publish the other workbook. Yeah, let's say I've published another workbook and I want to link to it. I'll just need to create a field. Okay, let me do it very quickly. I'll just create a calculated field that says URL of my other workbook. It will be a string, so let me grab whatever workbook, for instance this one. I do this, and I put the URL of my other workbook instead of my Wikipedia, for instance, so that now if I go back to my dashboard action menu, I will say instead of hyperlinking to Wikipedia, hyperlink to other workbook. The link should be replaced as well, so here we go, test the link. And you see that it goes to another workbook. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were trying to do, but that would be a way to do it. The only thing here is that it's not dependent on the country. Whatever dot I click on, it will link me to my published workbook, while the Wikipedia one was dependent on the country field, which would allow me to have a different page for every country. Okay. So while I wait for questions, I wanted to show you another few dashboards that contain interactions and try to explain you what was the rationale behind the actions. So here is a map of candidate cities to the Olympic Games. And you see the size of the squares indicates the number of times the city was a candidate for hosting the games. So Los Angeles is the biggest square on the map with 9 times trying to apply. And when I click on it, as is requested here, click on the cities to find out how many times they hosted. then I see that Los Angeles has a success rate of 22%. I should update it because they will actually get the 2028 Olympic Games, so the success rate will be slightly higher. And it tells me when they applied and when they succeeded. And below I see a timeline telling me all the years when they applied, and the big rectangle is telling when they were successful. And so the idea, the interactions that I have here, first I have a filter that's filtering only the map. Because if you notice, Europe is very crowded, so I wanted a way to zoom onto Europe and let people see more clearly which cities applied. So if I look at my hometown, Paris, it's applied 5 times, plus 2024 that we just got. And we were like, there were some failures, 2 failures in a row, which made us stop for a while and wait for the century of the 1924 Olympic Games. Yeah, and so this is one filter action. Then you see that there is a filter action with exclude all values that's at stake here in the middle, because when I untick Paris, I see nothing. And then there is a highlighting action that is implemented. So those are 2 different actions that I have in my workbook. And then there is also another highlighting action that goes from the timeline to the map in case people don't really know where a certain city is in the world. So if I go back to the full map, if I don't know where Philadelphia is, I can see it on the map. So that's how you implement the dashboard actions. Remember that filtering actions have the priority over highlighting, so you will need to think a bit about what you want. If you actually want to highlight, then you will exclude, you will not put a filter doing the same thing. Let's say I wanted a highlight from the timeline to my map. I made sure that there was no filtering action that would take priority on that one. All right. So we've reached 50 minutes, which is a bit over time. So I'll just let you have a great day or great evening ahead. I hope this was useful. I don't know if you didn't ask much questions because it was clear, or if it's because it was completely confusing and you didn't think I could make it clearer, but hopefully the first one. I'm sharing with you the dashboards that you can download on Tableau Public. They are both here. So if you go, this is the start dashboard. So it only contains the instructions on how to get each stuff implemented. And you can download it here by clicking Tableau Workbook at the bottom. So the download button, Tableau Workbook. And this is the end workbook with all the actions implemented. So if you cannot reproduce the actions from the start workbook, you can just download the end workbook and retro-engineer how it was done. And the same, you can download that. If you want cool examples of downloadable dashboards with actions, I'm sending you the Wikipedia Guide to French Impressionist Painters by Shane Pulikatara, winner of Iron Viz 2015. You'll see tons of cool dashboard actions, like showing you paintings from the painters, where they lived. So that's a pretty impressive one. If you want to download the Big Mac Index, I'm sharing that with you too. Summer Olympics as well. And yeah, I just wanted to tell you that most of the time, first viz of the day, we also make sure that the interactivity makes sense. So even if it's something we cannot really understand clearly, we try to get insight from a native, but we also look at how the dashboard interaction works and if it makes sense. And so here it's the most popular shrines in Japan, and you see that when I hover over a specific temple, the map and the picture on the right side will update. So that's pretty neat. Even if I cannot really read Japanese, I can still play with it and understand a bit what it's about. And here we have some filtering actions at play. which is also pretty neat. So for each author that is shown here, I will get an update of their picture, their Twitter, etc. So those are very recent Viz of the Days that I wanted to share with you, because interactivity is definitely something that's quite important for winning Viz of the Day. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great evening, a great morning if you're in Europe. Hope this was useful, and I'm looking forward to see more of your interactive dashboards in the future on Tableau Public. Thanks, everyone.